He swore it wasn't supposed to end this way. Not with her walking across the marble-floored ballroom, her heels clicking with each deliberate step toward the microphone. Not with the entire board rising to greet her. The woman who once made his bed, now poised to take his company. That if someone mocked you and tried to ruin your dignity, would you fight back or walk away quietly? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. Trevor Stone, once the golden boy of Silicon Valley, felt his heart hammer against his ribs as 18 years of secrets converged in this single, catastrophic moment. The maid he'd used to prove his manhood, to silence his family's mockery, now stood draped in Armani, not the uniform he'd peeled off her that reckless Atlanta night. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman announced, I'm pleased to introduce the new majority shareholder of Stone Technologies, Ms. Maya Daniels. The cameras captured it all. The slight tremor in Trevor's hand as he reached for his water glass, the flicker of recognition across his mother's aristocratic features, and most damning, the young woman standing by the entrance, whose eyes mirrored his own in shape and color. A daughter he'd never acknowledged. Maya's gaze locked with his across the crowded room. In that look lived 1,000 unspoken words, the weight of a night he'd thought was buried, a connection he'd paid to forget, and a reckoning he never saw coming. It's been a long journey, Maya began, her voice steady as a surgeon's hand, from cleaning your houses to owning your future. The room fell silent. What would you do if someone you once treated as disposable returned holding the deed to your life? Would you fight, surrender, or discover that some debts can only be paid in public humiliation? Hold that thought. This story of power, revenge, and unexpected connection is just beginning. Have you ever underestimated someone who later changed your life? Has karma ever returned your actions with interest? The choices we make when we think no one's watching often become the very things that define us. What happens when wealth meets desperation? When privilege collides with determination? That's the story we're about to witness. One that asks if revenge served cold tastes as sweet as its architects imagine. If this resonates with your own experience of being underestimated or watching someone rise from nowhere, drop a comment below. I want to know, would you forgive someone who used you as a stepping stone, or would you make them pay with everything they have? Still a virgin at 25? That's adorable, Trevor. Truly. The words hung in the air of the Stone Technologies boardroom, his sister Victoria's laughter bouncing off floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking San Francisco Bay. Trevor Stone adjusted his Patek Philippe watch, his grandfather's final gift, and forced his face to remain neutral despite the heat crawling up his neck. Sexual experience isn't a metric for business acumen, he replied, shuffling presentation documents into a precise stack. Our cue for projections. Oh, please, his father interrupted, leaning back in his ergonomic chair. You think those Japanese investors take you seriously? They asked if you had a wife 3 times during dinner. They want a man leading their investment, not a boy. The boardroom emptied as executives filed out, leaving only family, which somehow made it worse. Family knew where to plant the knife. I'm running a technology company, not a brothel, Trevor said, his voice tight. My personal life is non-existent, Victoria finished, scrolling through her phone. Which would be fine if you were building rockets or coding in a basement. But you're the face of Stone Technologies. Image matters. His mother sighed, perfectly manicured fingers adjusting her pearls. Darling, we're concerned. Your grandfather built this company on relationships. People trust strength, confidence, experience. The unspoken assessment hung between them. Trevor Stone had technical brilliance, but lacked the killer instinct that made his grandfather legendary. Too sheltered, too controlled, too virgin. We're flying to Atlanta tomorrow for the holiday gathering, his father reminded him. Your cousins will ask the same questions. Blake just married his 3rd wife, and even Christopher has that Swedish model. Meanwhile, you got, what? Stock options. Trevor stood abruptly. I'll meet you at the airport. He strode from a room, shoulders rigid under his tailored jacket, fury and humiliation brewing beneath his carefully constructed exterior. In the elevator, alone at last, he loosened his tie and leaned against the cool metal wall. Virgin. The word clung to him like a slur. Not that he hadn't had opportunities. Women approached the young billionaire constantly. But relationships required vulnerability, and vulnerability was weakness. He'd chosen focus over distraction, control over chaos. And now that choice marked him as inadequate in the eyes of the people whose approval he most craved. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. Arranged a date for you in Atlanta. Governor's daughter. Try not to bore her with your coding stories. Trevor's jaw tightened. The constant meddling, the judgment, the expectation that he should prove himself through conquest rather than innovation. Something dark and rebellious stirred within him, a desire to shock them all, to do something they would never expect from perfectly controlled Trevor Stone. The elevator doors opened to the lobby where his driver waited. As he crossed the marble floor, a cleaning woman bent to polish a brass directory. Something about her, the curve of her neck, the efficiency of her movements, caught his attention. She glanced up, their eyes meeting briefly before she looked away. In that fleeting moment, an idea formed, dangerous and beneath him, yet oddly compelling. If his family wanted him to prove himself as a man, perhaps he would. Just not how they expected. On the private jet to Atlanta, Trevor gazed out at clouds while his family discussed holiday plans. His mind drifted to the sprawling stone estate waiting for them, with its army of staff preparing for the gathering. Staff who were invisible to his family. People his relatives viewed as functions rather than humans. We've hired extra help for the weekend, his mother mentioned. That new girl from Detroit. Maya's something, she'll handle the guest rooms. Trevor nodded absently, turning the watch on his wrist, feeling its weight. His grandfather's voice echoed in memory. A stone man takes what he wants. For the first time, Trevor considered what he truly wanted. Not approval, not even success. Control, power. To be the one making others uncomfortable for a change. As the plane descended toward Atlanta, Trevor made a decision. This holiday weekend would indeed mark the end of his virginity, but not through some arranged date with a governor's daughter. No, he would do something truly shocking. Something that would prove once and for all that he wasn't the predictable, controlled heir they all thought him to be. Something that would change everything. The Stone estate sprawled across 30 acres of Georgia countryside, a white-column monument to old money that had married new-tech wealth without sacrificing an ounce of pretension. Trevor watched from the car window as they approached through iron gates, noting how the holiday lights transformed the mansion into a postcard of Southern elegance. Blake and Jennifer arrived yesterday, his mother informed them. And the governor confirmed for dinner tomorrow. His daughter Alessandra is quite accomplished, Princeton, then Harvard Business. Trevor barely listened, his attention caught by movement on the grand porch, staff lining up to greet the family's arrival. Among them stood a woman he didn't recognize, younger than the others, her uniform crisp but her stance different, less servile, more observant. The car stopped. Doors opened. The routine commenced. "Welcome home, Mr. and Mrs. Stone," the butler intoned, as he had for 20 years. Trevor moved through the greeting line with practiced politeness until he reached the unfamiliar face. "Trevor, this is Maya Daniels," his mother said with a dismissive introduction reserved for temporary staff. "She's handling the East Wing this weekend." Up close, Maya was striking in a way that defied the uniform's attempt to render her anonymous. Dark eyes met his without dropping submissively, her handshake firm and brief. "Mr. Stone," she acknowledged, her voice carrying hints of somewhere urban and northern. Detroit, he remembered, not the usual local hire. "Welcome to Atlanta," he replied, holding her gaze a moment longer than necessary. Something flickered in her expression, awareness, perhaps, of his lingering attention. Inside, the house hummed with pre-holiday activity. Relatives arrived in waves. Uncles boasting about business deals, aunts critiquing the decor, cousins comparing watches and weekend homes. Trevor moved through it mechanically, nursing a scotch, fielding questions about stock prices and acquisition targets. "Still married to the job, Trev?" His cousin Blake slapped his shoulder, wedding ring gleaming. "You should try marriage." Nothing like having someone waiting at home. Or multiple someones, in your case, Trevor replied dryly. Blake laughed too loudly. At least I know what to do with a woman. Word is you're still inexperienced. The conversation shifted, but the damage lingered. Throughout the afternoon, Trevor noticed the glances, the smirks, the not-quite whispered comments. His virginity had become family folklore. The brilliant heir who could code algorithms but couldn't bet a woman. From a window, he watched Maya directing other staff in the garden, arranging lights for the evening gathering. She moved with authority despite her junior position. When she reached up to adjust a string of lights, her uniform pulled tight across her back, revealing a figure both athletic and feminine. Trevor turned away, unsettled by his own observation. Dinner was an exercise in endurance. 16 relatives around a table laden with crystal and silver. Conversation flowing like the expensive wine, business, politics, gossip. Trevor contributed when necessary, but his attention kept drifting to the staff moving silently around them, particularly to Maya, who seemed to anticipate needs before they were voiced. Trevor's company just acquired that AI startup, his father announced. Tell them about the application, son. He explained the technology efficiently, watching his relatives' eyes glaze over. Only Maya, refilling water glasses, seemed genuinely interested, her head tilting slightly as he described neural networks. Fascinating, his uncle commented, clearly bored. But when are you bringing someone home for these gatherings? Your grandfather had already produced an heir by your age. Trevor's glass froze halfway to his lips. I'm focused on building what grandfather started. A man needs balance, his father pronounced. Work and family. Legacy. Speaking of legacy, Blake interjected, Jennifer and I are expecting. Due in June. Congratulations erupted. Trevor offered appropriate words while feeling the implicit comparison. Another milestone he hadn't reached. Another expectation unfulfilled. Later, escaping to the library, Trevor found momentary peace among leather-bound books. The door opened, and Maya entered with a tray. Coffee, Mr. Stone? Your mother mentioned you might want some. Thank you, he said, watching as she set the service down. Without the audience of his family, he added, You're new here. 6 months, she replied. I work most major events. From Detroit. Something guarded crossed her face. Yes. Long way to come for domestic work. Jobs go where jobs go, she said evenly. Some of us can't afford to chase dreams. The subtle rebuke in her tone surprised him. Staff rarely spoke to him with anything but deference. Fair enough, he conceded. Why Atlanta? Maya hesitated, then shrugged. Needed a fresh start. Detroit wasn't kind to single black women with ambition, but no connections. The honesty was refreshing. He found himself wanting to continue the conversation, but his phone buzzed. Victoria, requesting his presence upstairs. Thank you for the coffee, he said, rising. Maya nodded, turning to leave, but paused. Your AI explanation at dinner. It actually made sense to someone without 3 degrees. That's rare. The compliment, unexpected and seemingly genuine, caught him off guard. Thank you, he replied, watching as she slipped from the room, wondering why her opinion suddenly mattered. The family gathering migrated to the back terrace, where heaters fought December's chill and waitstaff circulated with champagne. Trevor stood at the stone balustrade, watching darkness claim the manicured gardens while his relatives' voices rose and fell behind him in waves of privileged certainty. There you are. Victoria appeared beside him, glass in hand. The governor's daughter arrives tomorrow. We're the blue Brioni. It hides your perpetual tension. Trevor's fingers tightened around his tumbler. I don't need a matchmaker. Evidence suggests otherwise. She sipped her champagne. Blake announced a pregnancy. Christopher closed his funding round, and you're hiding at parties analyzing everyone instead of living. Even father's worried. Father's worried about optics, not me. Same difference in this family. Victoria's voice softened fractionally. Look, just meet Alessandra. She's brilliant, connected, and discreet. Perfect for someone like you. The implication hung between them. Someone broken. Someone who needed fixing. Trevor drained his glass, the expensive scotch burning a path to his stomach. "I need to make a call," he muttered, walking away before she could respond. Instead of calling anyone, Trevor wandered the East Wing's corridor, where guest rooms were being prepared for tomorrow's arrivals. A door stood ajar, light spilling into the hallway. He paused at the sound of movement within. Maya worked efficiently, turning down bedding with practiced motions. Something about her concentration, the precise economy of her movements, held his attention. When she looked up and noticed him watching, she didn't startle or apologize for existing, reactions he was accustomed to from staff caught in his gaze. "Need something, Mr. Stone?" she asked, straightening. The question, direct and unadorned with excessive deference, struck him as an opportunity. His family's mockery, the arranged date, the unspoken judgment, all of it crystallized into a reckless impulse. "A conversation," he said, stepping into the room and closing the door partway. "In private." Wariness crossed her features. "I'm working. I'll make it worth your time." Her expression cooled. "I'm not interested in whatever you're suggesting." "Not that," he said quickly, though the defensive response revealed his unformed intentions more clearly than he'd intended. "Just information. Paid information." Curiosity replaced caution. "What kind of information?" Trevor leaned against the doorframe, keeping distance between them. "My family thinks I'm inadequate because I prioritized building a company over certain experiences." Understanding dawned in her eyes. The virgin billionaire. Staff gossip travels. Heat crawled up his neck. "So you know, rich people's secrets are currency downstairs." She folded a towel, her movements deliberate. "Still doesn't explain why you're here." Trevor took a breath. "Tomorrow night, after the governor's dinner, I want you to claim we spent the night together." Maya's hand stilled. "Excuse me. Nothing would actually happen," he clarified. "You'd simply mention to the right staff member that we connected. It would circulate. My family would hear. Their mockery would end. You want me to lie about sleeping with you?" Her tone flattened. "To salvage your ego." When she phrased it that way, the plan sounded pathetic. Trevor should have retreated, apologized for the inappropriate suggestion. Instead, something harder emerged, pride wounded by her judgment. "I'd compensate you generously," he said, voice cooling to match his business negotiations. $5,000 for a simple story." Maya's eyebrows rose. "That's a lot of money for a rumor." "Not to me." The words came out more arrogant than intended. "Look, it's a business transaction. You need money. I need a problem solved." Her expression shifted, something calculating replacing surprise. "How do you know I need money?" "You left Detroit for domestic work in Atlanta. Economic refugees don't travel south for the weather." The assessment hung between them, true but cruel in its directness. Maya set down the towel, studying him with new intensity. 10,000, she countered. "And I choose which staff member hears the story." The negotiation, unexpected but oddly fitting, brought familiar territory. 7,000. "You tell Vivian. She's worked here 30 years and can't keep a secret to save her life." 8,000. "I tell Vivian tomorrow morning, giving the story maximum circulation time before you face your family at dinner." Trevor considered her counterproposal, impressed despite himself. "Done." Maya crossed her arms. "Payment first. Cash. Half now, half after Vivian starts spreading the word." She nodded once, agreement reached. The businesslike exchange should have concluded there, transaction complete. Instead, Trevor found himself lingering, examining the woman who'd so readily agreed to his scheme. "Why say yes?" he asked. Most would be offended. Something hardened in her expression. $8,000 is 3 months' salary. I have responsibilities you couldn't comprehend with your trust fund and stock options." The rebuke stung precisely because it contained truth. Trevor reached for his wallet, extracted his black card. "There's an ATM in my father's study. Come with me. I'll get your first payment now." As they walked silently through the darkened hallways, passing priceless art his family collected but rarely appreciated, Trevor felt the first stirrings of doubt. This plan, born of wounded pride and rebellion, suddenly seemed beneath him. But then they passed the main terrace, voices carrying through French doors, Blake's distinctive laugh, followed by his father's response. Trevor needs to grow up sometime. Can't build a legacy with code alone. Maya glanced at him, catching the flash of hurt before he masked it. The study is this way, he said, voice clipped, decision reaffirmed. Some wounds required immediate cauterization, no matter how crude the method. The grandfather clock in the study chimed midnight as Trevor counted bills from the hidden safe. Maya stood by the door, her uniform stark against dark wood paneling that had witnessed generations of Stone family decisions. None quite like this one. 4,000 now, Trevor said, extending an envelope. 4,000 tomorrow after Vivian starts talking. Maya took the envelope without opening it, tucking it into her uniform pocket. We should align our stories. Details matter with gossip. Trevor hadn't considered this practical aspect. What details? Where it happened? How it started? Enough specifics to sound believable without sounding rehearsed. She was right, of course. The lie needed architecture to stand. He gestured toward leather chairs flanking the fireplace. Let's figure it out. They sat across from each other, the power dynamic shifting subtly. In this domain, deception, performance, the navigation of others' perceptions, Maya clearly possessed expertise Trevor lacked. Your room is too obvious, she began. Staff monitor the main wing carefully. The pool house makes more sense, private, removed from regular patrols. Trevor nodded, impressed by her tactical thinking. And the timing? Tonight, after your family retires. I'll mention coming to deliver extra towels around 1 a.m. You requested them specially. She outlined a scenario with practiced ease. I found you unable to sleep, working on your laptop. One thing led to another. The clinical precision of her planning should have reassured him. Instead, Trevor found himself oddly unsettled, imagining the scenario she described. The pool house after midnight. The unexpected connection. What might have happened in another reality? And what exactly did one thing lead to? He asked, aiming for detachment, but achieving something closer to curiosity. Maya met his gaze directly. Nothing pornographic. Vivian is 62 and religious. I'll imply passion without graphic details. That you were surprisingly gentle, considerate. Unexpected intimacy rather than just sex. Gentle. Trevor raised an eyebrow. Rich boys with something to prove rarely are. She shrugged. It makes the story more interesting. The controlled tech genius revealing hidden depths. Better narrative. The assessment stung, though he couldn't pinpoint why. You've thought this through. $8,000 deserves proper planning. Maya stood, straightening her uniform. I should go. Early breakfast service tomorrow. Trevor rose as well, suddenly aware of their isolation in the study, the house quiet around them. We have a deal then. We do. She moved toward the door, then hesitated. One suggestion, act differently tomorrow. Relaxed, slightly distracted. People notice patterns breaking. The advice was sound. Still, something about her tone, the assumption he needed coaching in human behavior, pricked at him. I know how to play a role, he said, more sharply than intended. Maya's expression remained neutral. Most people believe that until the performance actually matters. Before he could respond, she slipped through the door, leaving him alone with the money's absence and the weight of anticipation. Tomorrow, his family would see him differently. Tomorrow, their mockery would end. So why did victory already taste hollow? Sleep proved elusive. Trevor lay in his childhood bedroom, surrounded by evidence of his structured upbringing, debate trophies, math competition medals, early coding projects framed like masterpieces. Achievements that had earned praise, but never quite acceptance. His thoughts kept returning to Maya, the directness of her gaze, the pragmatism with which she'd accepted his proposal, the life circumstances he could only dimly imagine that made $8,000 worth of fabricated intimacy. Morning arrived with pale winter sunlight and the distant sounds of the household stirring. Trevor showered, dressed casually in jeans and a cashmere sweater, and made his way downstairs earlier than usual. In the breakfast room, staff moved efficiently, setting out chafing dishes. Trevor spotted Maya serving coffee to his early rising uncle. Their eyes met briefly across the room, a private acknowledgement of shared conspiracy. He filled a plate and took a seat, nodding greetings to relatives as they trickled in. His father appeared, newspaper in hand, offering a distracted morning sun before disappearing behind financial pages. Vivian entered with fresh pastries, placing them near Trevor with a smile that seemed different, knowing, almost conspiratorial. He returned it cautiously, wondering if Maya had already set their plan in motion. Victoria arrived last, dropping into the chair beside him. "You're up early," and smiling. "Did aliens replace my brother overnight?" Trevor shrugged, remembering Maya's advice about pattern disruption. "Just slept well. Miraculous, considering the mattresses in this wing haven't been replaced since we were children." Victoria studied him over a coffee cup. "You seem different." The observation confirmed Maya's strategy was working. He offered a non-committal hum, focusing on his breakfast while feeling a strange lightness, the anticipation of a burden lifting. Across the room, Maya moved between tables with practiced efficiency. Nothing in her demeanor suggested anything had changed, yet Vivian followed her movements with unusual attention, whispering something to another staff member who glanced quickly at Trevor. The performance had begun. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Vivian knows. Story spreading. Prepare to act appropriately surprised if directly confronted. Trevor deleted the message, suppressing a smile. For the first time since arriving in Atlanta, he felt a step ahead of his family's expectations rather than hopelessly behind them. What he didn't anticipate was how the lie would settle into his consciousness, creating an imaginary memory that felt increasingly real with each passing hour. A night that never happened with a woman who saw through him more clearly than anyone had before. 3 days later, Trevor gazed through the private jet's window as San Francisco materialized through morning fog. The holiday weekend had transformed him, not through any real change, but through perception. Amazing how quickly narrative replaced reality. "You're different," Victoria observed, sliding into the seat opposite him. "Mother thinks you finally became a man." Her words, not mine. Trevor maintained neutral expression. "The family gossip machine is efficient as always." "Please." The staff practically buzzed every time you enter a room. She studied him. "That maid from Detroit? Really, Trevor?" "Father nearly had a coronary." "Her name is Maya," he corrected, surprising himself with the defensive tone. Victoria's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. "Oh, getting protective? I assumed it was a one-time rebellion." The comment stung more than it should have. Trevor turned back to the window, recalling how thoroughly the fabrication had spread. By the governor's dinner, his uncle had slapped his back with newfound respect. His father had poured him an extra finger of the reserve scotch. Even Blake's congratulations carried reluctant acknowledgement, all for something that never happened. The governor's daughter was disappointed. Victoria continued. "She found your sudden unavailability intriguing rather than offensive. Wants your number. Not interested. Because of the maid?" "Trevor, please tell me you're not." "It's not about Maya," he interrupted. "I'm focused on the Byte Sync acquisition. The Japanese investors need reassurance after the security breach." Victoria studied him a moment longer before accepting the subject change. "Fine. Play the dedicated CEO. At least the virgin jokes have stopped." As the plane descended, Trevor checked his phone. Among the business emails sat a payment confirmation. The remaining $4,000 transferred to the account number Maya had texted him. "Transaction complete. Connection severed." He deleted the confirmation, unsettled by his reluctance to close this unusual chapter. Back in his minimalist penthouse overlooking the bay, Trevor showered away travel fatigue and changed into familiar armor. Tailored suit, subtle tie, grandfather's watch. The costume of competence. His phone rang, the board chairman. "Trevor, welcome back. Heard you had an eventful holiday." He froze. "Excuse me? Your father mentioned you seemed more relaxed." "Good timing. The Japanese delegation arrives tomorrow. They respond to confidence." Relief flooded him. "Of course. I'll be prepared." "Excellent. Oh, and Trevor, Your father mentioned a scholarship program for Detroit students. Said you expressed interest over the holidays. Should we add it to the foundation agenda? Trevor hadn't mentioned any such program. His father had clearly manufactured this connection, creating an acceptable narrative for his son's interest in someone from Detroit. Yes, he replied, inspiration striking. Education pathways for underserved communities. I'll have a proposal drafted. The lie spawning unexpected truth felt oddly fitting. 2 weeks passed. Trevor moved through board meetings, investor dinners, and development reviews with newfound ease. The subtle shift in how others perceived him, more man than machine, capable of passion beyond algorithms, created space he hadn't known he needed. At night, alone in his penthouse, unwelcome thoughts emerged. Had Maya returned to her routine? Did the money solve whatever pressures had made his offer acceptable? He found himself wondering about her life beyond a uniform, the sharp intelligence behind practical negotiations. On impulse, he opened his laptop and typed, Maya Daniels, Detroit. The search yielded little. A high school honor roll mention from 11 years ago, a community college graduation notice. Nothing recent except a private Instagram account with minimal activity. The digital ghost matching physical absence left him strangely disappointed. His assistant knocked, entering with afternoon reports. The foundation committee approved your Detroit scholarship initiative. PR wants to know if you'll attend the announcement event. Schedule it, he replied, closing the browser window. And book the jet. For the whole executive team? Just me. I want to oversee the implementation personally. The assistant nodded, making notes. The Japanese investors were impressed yesterday. Mr. Tanaka specifically mentioned your newfound balance, whatever that means. Trevor almost smiled. The fiction continued, yielding unexpected dividends. You've gone soft on us, Stone. Blake's voice carried across the exclusive lounge where Trevor had agreed to meet his cousin during a layover. Silicon Valley's rumor mill demanded occasional family appearances to prevent speculation. Meaning, Trevor sipped sparkling water while Blake nursed scotch. This Detroit scholarship thing. Father says you've earmarked $2 million for the first year alone. Since when do you care about community investment? Trevor maintained neutral expression. Diversifying talent pipelines makes business sense. We need programmers who think differently. Right. Blake smirked. Nothing to do with a certain domestic employee from your holiday weekend. The insinuation hung between them. Trevor could have denied it, explained the program had nothing to do with Maya specifically. Instead, he simply stared at his cousin until Blake's smirk faltered. Whatever you're implying is inappropriate, Trevor finally said. The Foundation's initiatives are business decisions, not personal ones. Blake raised his hands in mock surrender. Hey, no judgment. We've all had staff indiscretions, though most of us don't create million-dollar programs afterward. The crude assessment graded against Trevor's carefully constructed narrative. He stood, dropping cash for the bill. Some of us think beyond immediate gratification, Blake. You should try it sometime. Walking away, phone buzzing with executive demands, Trevor realized his defensive response revealed more than he'd intended. The fabricated connection to Maya had somehow grafted itself onto his identity, influencing decisions that went far beyond their original transaction. As his driver navigated toward the airport, Trevor gazed at the scholarship proposal on his tablet. Maya's face wouldn't leave his thoughts. Her practical negotiations, her direct gaze, the way she'd architected a deception that had unexpectedly liberated him. He owed her nothing beyond the completed payment. Their business was concluded. So why did he find himself checking flight schedules to Atlanta, wondering if a certain member of the Stone Estate staff might be working the upcoming foundation dinner? And why did the prospect of seeing her again create anticipation he hadn't felt for anything in years? For months passed without contact. Trevor buried himself in acquisitions and product launches, his newfound confidence translating into business victories that pleased shareholders and impressed the board. The Detroit Scholarship Initiative launched with considerable press, establishing Stone Technologies as a leader in diversity recruitment, an unexpected outcome from a lie told in a Georgia mansion. Tonight, however, that mansion loomed again as Trevor's car approached the familiar gates. The quarterly foundation gala had always been his mother's domain, but his recent interest in philanthropy had prompted her insistence that he attend. "Mr. Stone, we've arrived." His driver opened the door to spring evening air scented with magnolias. The estate blazed with lights, cars lining the circular drive as Atlanta's elite arrived for the foundation's biggest fundraiser. Trevor straightened his tie, hyper-aware that he hadn't confirmed whether Maya still worked here. Pride had prevented him from asking his mother directly. "Trevor, darling." His mother appeared at the entrance, diamonds glittering at her throat. "You're just in time to meet the scholarship recipients. They're absolutely fascinating." One girl built an entire network security system for her community college. He followed her through the crowd, accepting handshakes and navigating small talk with practiced ease. The main ballroom had been transformed with displays highlighting foundation initiatives, including a prominent exhibit on the Detroit program. The founder himself, a young black woman in a navy blue dress, approached, hand extended. "I'm Zora Williams, Detroit cohort. Your algorithm challenge kept me up 3 nights straight." Trevor shook her hand, impressed by her direct approach. "Did you solve it?" "Found 2 solutions, actually. One conventional, one that broke every rule but ran 40% faster." Her confidence was refreshing. "Your team liked the conventional approach. I think you would have preferred the hack." He smiled despite himself. "You might be right. Zora's our star," the program director interjected. "Top scores across every assessment. Already has 2 companies recruiting her." "3 now," Trevor replied. "Send me your unconventional solution. We need people who think beyond established parameters." Zora beamed. "That's why I applied. You built that payment processing system that everyone said would fail until it revolutionized mobile banking. Breaking rules with purpose, that's what Detroit taught me too." Something about her energy, her directness, reminded him of Maya. The thought came unbidden, unwelcome. "Excuse me," he said, spotting his father across the room. "Enjoy the evening." As he navigated the crowd, Trevor scanned staff faces automatically. No sign of Maya among the servers or coordinators. Perhaps she moved on, used his money to escape domestic work entirely. The thought should have pleased him, a positive outcome from their transaction, yet left him oddly hollow. "So," his father intercepted him with a glass of champagne. "The Detroit initiative is generating impressive press." Board's pleased. Trevor accepted the glass and the rare approval simultaneously. "The talent pool is exceptional. Your mother thinks it's connected to that holiday incident." His father's voice lowered. "Is it?" The question demanded denial, a clear separation between business decisions and personal indiscretions. Instead, Trevor found himself answering with unexpected honesty. "Sometimes we find inspiration in unexpected places." His father studied him, then nodded slowly. "Well, it's working. The Japanese partnership is finalized, acquisition targets are responding favorably, and you seem centered. Whatever catalyzed this change, I won't question it further." The validation, so long sought but offered for partially fabricated reasons, tasted bittersweet. A commotion near the scholarship display drew attention. Zora had apparently commandeered a laptop and projector, demonstrating her security algorithm to an enthralled group of donors. Even from across the room, Trevor could see the elegant efficiency of her code. "Remarkable young woman," his father commented. "Reminds me of you at that age." That same intensity. Trevor moved closer, watching as Zora fielded complex, technical questions with composed brilliance. Her solution was genuinely innovative, approaching the security problem from a perspective he'd never considered. "Who mentored you on this approach?" he asked when the crowd thinned. Zora's expression brightened. "My mom, actually. She's not a programmer by training, but she thinks differently about systems, sees connections others miss. She must be proud. She is, though she couldn't come tonight. Had to work." Zora's voice held no apology, just statement of fact. "She's the reason I applied. Kept articles about you when you first hit the Forbes list. Said watching someone build something from intelligence rather than inheritance gave her hope." The comment landed unexpectedly. Trevor had always viewed his success as despite his family name, not realizing others might see him as self-made simply by comparison to inherited wealth. Your mother sounds remarkable. She is. Zora straightened, professional composure returning. Thank you for creating this opportunity, Mr. Stone. I won't waste it. As she rejoined her cohort, Trevor found himself wondering about the mother who collected articles about billionaires and taught her daughter to see systems differently, who worked tonight instead of witnessing her daughter's triumph. The evening progressed with speeches and checkbook philanthropy. Trevor fulfilled his obligations mechanically, thoughts elsewhere. When the crowd finally thinned near midnight, he escaped to the library, the same room where he'd counted cash for Maya months ago. The door opened behind him. He turned, expecting his mother or Victoria. Maya stood in the doorway, no longer in uniform, but wearing a simple black dress, event staff attire rather than household service. Her hair was different, styled in a sleek bob that framed features more striking than he remembered. Mr. Stone, she acknowledged, voice neutral. Your mother sent me to ask if you'll join the final toast. For months of unexpected thoughts crystallized into this moment. Trevor studied her, searching for signs of the transaction that had changed his life's trajectory while apparently leaving hers unchanged. Maya, he finally said, you're still working here. Only special events. Something guarded entered her expression. I have a different position now. Questions formed and dissolved. Pride prevented their asking. I'll join shortly, he replied instead. She nodded and turned to leave. Maya, he called after her. The Detroit Scholarship Program. Was at your community college in the promotional materials. She paused, hand on the doorframe. Yes. What? Just curious if our arrangement had any positive outcomes beyond the financial. Her expression remained carefully neutral. $8,000 helped considerably. The scholarship program helps others. Your conscience should be clear, Mr. Stone. She disappeared before he could respond, leaving him with the distinct impression that his conscience was the last thing she cared about, and the first thing he'd thought of when seeing her again. The Foundation Gala's afterglow faded as Trevor returned to San Francisco, throwing himself into work with renewed intensity. Something about seeing Maya again, her cool professionalism, the distance she'd maintained, left him unsettled in ways he couldn't articulate. Late one evening, reviewing acquisition documents in his office overlooking the illuminated Bay Bridge, Trevor's phone rang with his assistant's number. Sir, there's a situation requiring immediate attention. Her normally composed voice carried tension. The PR team needs you in the conference room. Now, the elevator ride to the conference floor felt interminable. Trevor found his chief communications officer, legal counsel, and 3 ashen-faced PR specialists huddled around a laptop. What happened? He demanded. The CCO turned the screen toward him. This went live 20 minutes ago on Tech Muckraker. They're calling it the Virgin Billionaire's Secret. The headline blazed across the screen. Exposed. Stone Technology CEO paid household staff for sex during family holiday. Trevor's blood turned to ice. The article detailed his transaction with Maya with damning specificity. The cash payment, the arranged story, even the pool house location they'd fabricated. Anonymous sources cited multiple staff members at the Stone estate confirming the CEO had paid a maid for sexual services, then launched a scholarship program in her home city. It's already hit Twitter, the PR director said grimly. Major outlets are calling for comment. Trevor's mind raced. It's partially inaccurate. We never. Paying household staff for sex or paying household staff to lie about sex. Neither narrative works in our favor, the legal counsel interrupted. The board will convene emergency session by morning. Who leaked this? Trevor demanded. Unknown. The byline is anonymous. Could be estate staff, family jealousy, competitor looking to damage our Japanese partnership. The CCO looked grim. Does it matter? It's out there. It mattered to Trevor. Only 3 people knew the complete truth. Himself, Maya, and Vivian, who'd heard Maya's fabricated version. His family knew fragments, but not the payment arrangement. Draft a statement acknowledging I met Ms. Daniels during a family gathering, but denying any improper financial arrangement, he instructed. Emphasize the Detroit Initiative's educational merits, stand independent of any personal connections. The team began typing furiously. And give me the Stone Estate staff directory, he added. All contact information. 3 hours of crisis management followed. The board chairman called, voice grave with disappointment. Japanese partners emailed concerns about cultural alignment. Stock futures began sliding in Asia markets. All because of a lie that never even delivered the physical pleasure it was supposed to represent. In his private office, Trevor finally located Maya's contact information. His finger hovered over the call button, anger and betrayal warring with strategic thinking. If she had leaked the story, confronting her might exacerbate the situation. If she hadn't, he needed her cooperation to identify the source. He pressed call. 1 ring. 2. Then, this is Maya Daniels. It's Trevor Stone. He kept his voice controlled despite the crisis unfolding around him. We need to talk about the article. Silence stretched across the connection. Then what article? Either she was an exceptional actress or genuinely unaware. Trevor forwarded the link, waiting as silence indicated her reading. I didn't do this, she finally said, voice tight with what sounded like genuine shock. Why would I expose myself to this kind of scrutiny? I still work at the estate occasionally. Then who knew enough details to leak this? Vivian only knew what I told her, nothing about payment. Your family suspected something happened, but not the arrangement. Her voice hardened. Look at the timing. This drops right after the scholarship gala showcased Detroit students. When your company's stock hit record highs. The observation was astute. The leak maximized damage to both his corporate standing and the foundation's new initiative. Someone wants to hurt both of us, she continued. This damages my reputation too. I'm labeled a prostitute in a national publication. The reality of her situation hit him. While he faced board displeasure and stock fluctuations, she faced judgment of a different kind. More immediate, more personal. Where are you? He asked. Atlanta, working my actual job. Which is? Hesitation. I'm finishing my MBA while managing accounts for a regional marketing firm. The revelation surprised him. You're in business school? Yes, Mr. Stone. Some of us pursue education alongside work. $8,000 helped with tuition, not a lifestyle change. The correction stung. I need to understand who benefits from this leak. Can you meet tomorrow? I'll send the jet. A sharp laugh. Your private jet? That would certainly help the optics of this situation. Maya, my company is facing. Your company will survive this. Your stock might drop 10 points before your PR team crafts the perfect statement about personal growth and learning experiences. Her voice turned clinical. Meanwhile, I get to explain to my professors, colleagues, and daughter why I'm being called a prostitute in tech blogs. The last word registered with delayed impact. Daughter. Silence stretched across the connection. Maya, this conversation is pointless, she finally replied. Neither of us leaked the story. Both of us suffer consequences. The difference is you have resources to manage your crisis. I don't. The call ended before he could respond. Trevor stared at the silent phone, mind racing. Maya had a daughter. She was in business school. The $8,000 had helped with tuition. Each revelation painted a picture sharply different from the desperate domestic worker he'd propositioned Ed in an act of rebellion. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. The PR director entered with a tablet. Sir, we've identified another problem. The scholarship recipient who presented at the gala, Zora Williams? She's trending on Twitter. Trevor took the tablet, stomach sinking as he read Zora's post. When your mom works 80 hours per week to put you through school, then some rich guy creates a scholarship program for your city right after using her to prove his manhood to his family. At Stone Tech, your CEO's philanthropy has a dark foundation. Hashtag the truth about Stone. The post had thousands of retweets already, with major tech accounts amplifying her message. Trevor set down the tablet, pieces falling into horrible alignment. Zora Williams. Maya Daniels. The mother who collected articles about him. The daughter whose education required sacrifice. Sir, the PR director looked concerned. How do you want to respond? Trevor stared out at the San Francisco skyline. The empire he'd built now threatened by a lie that had somehow become more complicated than the truth. Find out everything about Zora Williams, he ordered, and book the jet for Atlanta. Tonight, Trevor's private jet touched down in Atlanta as dawn broke, the sky bleeding orange against charcoal clouds. He hadn't slept, alternating between crisis calls with the board and obsessive research into Zora Williams. The picture that emerged was damning in its excellence. Perfect SAT scores despite an underfunded high school. Community college valedictorian at 19. Self-taught programming skills that had impressed his own technical team. A digital footprint revealing passionate advocacy for educational access and occasional references to a hard-working single mother. A mother named Maya Daniels. The car waited on the tarmac. Not his usual luxury sedan, but a nondescript rental his security chief had arranged to avoid attention. Trevor had declined his usual entourage, bringing only his most trusted legal counsel. The board is split, she informed him, reviewing messages on her tablet as they drove toward the city. Half want immediate damage control. A statement acknowledging a brief consensual relationship being mischaracterized by the media. The other half want distance. A leave of absence while the company stabilizes. And the stock? He asked, watching Atlanta's skyline sharpen through morning haze. Down 12 points in pre-trading. The Japanese partnership is officially under review. 3 major clients have requested calls with the board chair directly. Trevor nodded, absorbing the impact. And Ms. Williams' post? Over 50,000 shares now. Several tech journalists have requested interviews with her. She hasn't responded publicly yet. The implications were clear. His company, the achievement that defined him beyond his family name, now balanced on the decisions of a young woman whose existence he hadn't known about yesterday. What's our play here? His lawyer asked quietly. Settlement offer? Non-disclosure agreement? The daughter is an adult, but potentially influenced by her mother. Trevor watched the city roll past, considering options. First, we need to understand their position. What do they want? Money, most likely. She shrugged. That's typically the motivation behind timing like this. If money were the primary motivation, Maya would have approached me years ago. The certainty in his voice surprised even him. There's something else at work here. The address Maya had provided led to a modest apartment complex near Atlanta's growing tech district. Not wealthy by any measure, but far from impoverished. Clean, well-maintained, with small balconies sporting container gardens and patio furniture. Wait in the car, Trevor instructed his lawyer, who frowned but complied. He climbed concrete steps to the 3rd floor, heart pounding with exertion that had nothing to do with physical effort. The door marked 312 loomed before him, the barrier between his past understanding and whatever truth awaited. Before he could knock, the door opened. Zora Williams stood in the entrance, arms crossed, expression coldly analytical. Up close, the resemblance to her mother was evident in her cheekbones and mouth. But her eyes, those were different, shaped like his own. Ms. Williams, he managed professionalism a shield against revelation. Mr. Stone, her voice held the clipped precision of someone containing fury. My mother's not here. I'd like to speak with you then. She evaluated him with an engineer's calculating gaze, assessing components, weighing functionality against flaws. 5 minutes, she finally said, stepping aside. The apartment told its own story. Bookshelves overflowing with business texts and technical manuals. A small desk with dual monitors displaying code, framed diplomas and academic awards. A home where education was clearly valued above aesthetics or luxury. Your tweet has the attention of our entire board, Trevor began, remaining standing as Zora hadn't offered seat. Good. She crossed her arms. They should know what kind of man leads their company. The situation with your mother was a transaction. Zora cut him off. She told me everything last night after that article dropped. How you paid her to lie about sleeping with you to impress your rich family. How that lie somehow turned into this scholarship that brought me into your orbit. The whole 6th circle of it. Trevor maintained his composure despite the verbal assault. If she told you everything, then you know nothing physical actually occurred between us. And that makes it better. Zora's laugh held no humor. You used her desperation. You never even asked why she needed that money so badly. The question had haunted him since yesterday's revelations. Why did she? Something shifted in Zora's expression, surprised that he would ask directly. Medical bills. My grandmother was dying of cancer. Mom was working 3 jobs, trying to cover treatments insurance wouldn't touch. Her voice tightened. Your little ego boost paid for my grandmother's pain medication during her final months. The information landed like a physical blow. What had been a simple transaction to him had been survival for Maya. I'm sorry about your grandmother, he said quietly. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know. You didn't ask. People like you never do. Zora moved toward the door. Your 5 minutes are up, Mr. Stone. Wait. Trevor remained in place. What do you want from this situation? Your tweet has significant implications for Stone Technologies and the scholarship program that benefits dozens of students like yourself. Zora's expression hardened. What do I want? I want you to face consequences for once in your privileged life. I want my mother to stop being called a prostitute in technology blogs. I want her family to know exactly how their golden boy builds his confidence. Each demand struck with precision. Trevor absorbed them, searching for negotiating room and finding none. And the scholarship program? He asked. Are you willing to damage opportunities for other students to make your point? The question landed as intended, ethical complexity clouding her righteous anger. The program should continue, she finally said, but not with your name attached, not built on this lie. And your position? You're our most promising recruit. Zora's mouth tightened. I don't need your company or your money. 3 other firms have already reached out since my tweet. Turns out, standing up to billionaires is attractive to your competitors. The response carried Maya's pragmatic directness, tempered with a confidence Trevor recognized from his own mirror. One last question, he said, moving toward the door. Does your mother know you're my daughter? Zora's expression froze, eyes widening in genuine shock. What are you talking about? The silence following his question stretched like overheated glass, fragile and dangerous. You're not. Zora finally managed, voice uncertain for the first time. My father was someone she dated briefly before working at your family's estate. He left before I was born. Trevor studied her face, the shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw when challenged, the analytical intensity that had impressed his technical team. Features he recognized from family photographs and morning mirrors. When were you born? He asked quietly. August 15th. I don't see how that's. What year? Zora's expression shifted from confusion to calculation. 2004, 9 months after that holiday gathering. Trevor maintained outward calm while his internal world reorganized around impossible implications. The timeline aligned perfectly. Maya had never mentioned pregnancy or a child during their transaction. Yet here stood the living evidence, brilliant, driven, with his family's unmistakable features softened by her mother's beauty. Your mother told you nothing happened between us physically, he said carefully. That's not entirely accurate. Understanding dawned in Zora's expression, followed quickly by disbelief. No, that's impossible. She would have told me. Would she? If she believed I used her desperation to serve my ego? If she built a life independent of Stone family influence? Trevor moved toward the door, giving her space to process. Ask her yourself. I suspect there's more to this story than either of us knows. Zora's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, color draining from her face. She's on her way up. You should leave. I need to speak with her. Not happening. Zora moved between him and the center of the apartment. You've done enough damage. The door opened before either could say more. Maya entered, dressed for her corporate job in a tailored blazer and pencil skirt, her composed expression shattering upon seeing Trevor in her living room. What are you doing here? She demanded, dropping her bag and moving protectively toward Zora. Damage control, Trevor replied evenly. Your daughter's tweet has my board demanding action. Maya's eyes narrowed. So send your lawyers with settlement papers. Why come yourself? Because I needed to see what I've been missing for 18 years. The words landed like artillery. Maya's face drained of color as she glanced between him and Zora. Mom! Zora's voice held a tremor. What's he talking about? Maya's hand found the back of a chair for support. Zora, could you give us a moment? No. Zora crossed her arms. Whatever he's implying affects me too. I deserve to hear it. Trevor watched Maya's careful composure fracture under impossible pressure. The controlled professional disappearing, revealing the young woman who'd once negotiated $8,000 with the same determination she'd apparently applied to raising his child alone. We should sit down, Maya finally said. They moved to the small dining table. Three people connected by secrets and consequences, separated by nearly 2 decades of unshared history. Nothing happened between us physically, Maya began, voice steady despite her pallor. That part was true. Then how? Zora started. I was already pregnant when I met him. Maya's eyes remained fixed on the table. 2 weeks before, I'd been with someone else, a visiting tech consultant I'd been dating casually. He left for a job in Europe, and I discovered the pregnancy after he was gone. Trevor absorbed this information, mental calculations adjusting. That doesn't align with Zora's birth date. She was premature, 7.5 months. Maya finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. At least, that's what I told everyone. The implication hung between them. You knew I was the father, Trevor stated flatly. You've always known. I suspected, Maya corrected. The timing made it possible. But by then, our arrangement had shown me exactly what kind of man you were. Using people for your convenience, throwing money at problems to make them disappear. So you kept her existence from me. For 18 years. I kept her from being a stone family problem. Maya's voice hardened. From being handled by your lawyers, managed by your mother, shaped into an acceptable narrative for your investors. Zora pushed back from the table, face tight with shock. Stop talking about me like I'm not here. If what you're saying is true, then my entire life, your entire life has been shaped by my love and sacrifice, Maya interrupted fiercely. Nothing changes that. Everything changes. Zora stood, hands shaking. My father isn't some nameless guy who abandoned us. He's Trevor Stone, the man whose company I've been trying to work for, whose scholarship program paid my tuition. The painful irony wasn't lost on Trevor. His attempt to erase family mockery had created actual family he'd never known existed. The scholarship, he said quietly. You must have recognized my name when the program was announced. Why apply if you hated me so much? Maya's expression flickered. The opportunity was too valuable to reject out of pride. Zora deserved every advantage. Even those coming from the man you kept her from knowing. Stop it. Zora's voice cut between them. Both of you. This isn't about your feelings. This is my life. She turned to Trevor. Did you come here to claim me now that I'm useful? Now that I've proven my worth with test scores and algorithms? The accusation struck deeper than Trevor expected. I came because your tweet threatened my company. I stayed because I recognized my own features in your face. How convenient that your paternal instincts aligned with your stock price concerns. The observation carried Maya's directness with a cutting edge entirely Zora's own. Or perhaps, Trevor realized with uncomfortable clarity, entirely his own. You're right to be angry, he acknowledged. At both of us. Your mother kept vital information from you. I never asked questions that might have revealed your existence. Maya stood, moving beside her daughter. What do you want, Trevor? Now that you know. The question contained multitudes. What did he want from this revelation? From the daughter he'd never known? From the woman who'd kept that daughter from him? From a situation threatening his company and reputation? First, I want confirmation, he replied. A DNA test. Maya nodded once, the pragmatic response he'd expected. Then, assuming what seems obvious is confirmed, I want to know my daughter. He turned to Zora, without conditions or expectations. Just knowledge of each other. Zora's expression remained guarded. And the company? The scandal? Your board's demands. Those are separate issues. No, Maya interjected. They're completely connected. Your interest in Zora will be viewed through the lens of this scandal. Every interaction will be scrutinized for damage, control, motivations. She wasn't wrong. The timing made any action suspect, genuine interest indistinguishable from strategic reputation management. Trevor's phone vibrated continuously in his pocket. Crisis managers, board members, PR specialists, all demanding direction. An empire potentially crumbling while he sat in a modest Atlanta apartment, facing the consequences of a single reckless choice made nearly 2 decades ago. "We need time," he finally said. "All of us. To think clearly about next steps." "Time won't change the facts," Maya replied, "or silence the story." "No." Trevor stood, decision crystallizing. "But it might give us space to create a different narrative, one that honors the truth rather than buries it." The Stone Technologies boardroom fell silent as Trevor finished speaking. 12 executives and 3 attorneys sat frozen, processing the bombshell he'd just delivered. "Let me ensure I understand," the board chairman finally said, removing his glasses. "You've discovered you have an 18-year-old daughter with the woman mentioned in the Techmocraker article. A daughter who happens to be our top scholarship recipient. And your proposed solution is complete transparency?" Trevor nodded, feeling strangely calm despite the corporate earthquake he'd initiated. "Partial disclosure created this crisis. Complete honesty is our only viable path forward." "Forgive me," the legal counsel interjected, "but confirming paternity of a child conceived during what the media is characterizing as a paid encounter. Nothing physical happened between Maya and myself during that holiday weekend," Trevor corrected. "Our arrangement was purely transactional, a fabricated story to silence family mockery. However, prior to that arrangement, we had a brief encounter that neither of us acknowledged afterward." The explanation sounded hollow even to his own ears, technical truth masking emotional complexity. 3 days in Atlanta had shifted his understanding of that night. What he'd remembered as impulsive rebellion now revealed itself as something more complicated, mutual attraction buried beneath power imbalance and class differences. "The DNA test confirms paternity beyond question," he continued. "Zora Williams is my biological daughter, and I intend to acknowledge her publicly." The chief communications officer pinched the bridge of her nose. "With respect, Trevor, this approach turns a manageable PR crisis into a legitimate scandal. Shareholders will panic." "They're already panicking," Trevor countered. "Our stock has dropped 17 points. 3 major clients have paused expansion plans. The Japanese partnership is hanging by a thread. Conventional damage control isn't working." He stood, moving to the window overlooking San Francisco. For 3 days, he'd barely slept, weighing options and consequences while Maya and Zora did the same in Atlanta. Their video calls have been tense, guarded, yet strangely productive. 3 analytical minds approaching an impossible situation from different angles but reaching similar conclusions. "Maya Daniels isn't interested in money or sensationalism," he explained, turning back to the board. "She built a career and raised our daughter while completing her MBA. Zora earned her place in our program through genuine merit. Her algorithms impressed our technical team before anyone knew our connection." "What exactly do they want?" the chairman asked. "Dignity, truth, an assurance that Zora's future won't be tainted by circumstances beyond her control." The CCO leaned forward. "And you believe publicly acknowledging paternity provides this?" "I believe continuing to hide or deny it guarantees continued damage." Trevor returned to his seat. "Maya and Zora are flying in tomorrow. I've arranged for them to present their conditions directly." Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room. "You've invited them here? Without board approval?" The chairman's tone sharpened. "Yes, because this isn't solely a corporate matter anymore." Trevor met each board member's gaze individually. "This is about legacy. Not just mine, but all of ours. How we handle this situation will define Stone Technologies more profoundly than any product launch or acquisition." The meeting adjourned with reluctant agreement to hear Maya and Zora's proposal. Trevor remained alone in the boardroom afterward, watching sunset paint the bay in crimson and gold. His phone buzzed with a text from Maya. "Landed. At hotel. Meeting still on for tomorrow." He replied affirmatively, then hesitated before adding, "Thank you for coming. I know this isn't easy." Three dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Finally, nothing about the past 18 years has been easy. Tomorrow won't be different. The response carried no self-pity, only matter-of-fact acknowledgement of reality. That practical resilience had shaped their daughter more profoundly than any genetic contribution he might have made. The hotel suite Trevor had arranged featured separate bedrooms, a common living area, and panoramic views of the city. Maya stood at the window while Zora reviewed their presentation on a laptop. "He's bringing his entire board?" Zora asked, adjusting slides. "Yes. Full transparency, he claims." Maya turned from the view. "Are you ready for this?" Zora looked up, her expression a complex mixture of determination and uncertainty. To face a room full of billionaires and demand they acknowledge their CEO's secret daughter? Not really, but here we are. We can still walk away, take the private settlement they initially offered, and let them bury the truth under NDAs and trust funds? Zora shook her head. "No thanks. I'd rather own my story than sell it." Maya studied her daughter, this remarkable person she'd raised alone, now navigating an impossible situation with courage that made her chest ache with pride. "When did you become so formidable?" she asked softly. "I had a good teacher." Zora's smile flickered briefly, plus apparently some stubborn stone DNA. The joke, the first acknowledgement of her paternity without anger, caught Maya off guard. "You're handling this better than I expected. I'm compartmentalizing, focusing on the practical problems first." Zora turned back to the presentation. "Emotions can wait until after we've secured our terms." The approach was so familiar, so much like Trevor's methodical problem-solving, that Maya felt momentarily disoriented by the genetic echo. "Have you decided what you want from him? Beyond these corporate assurances?" she asked carefully. Zora's fingers stilled over the keyboard. "I don't know yet. Part of me wants nothing, to prove I don't need a father who never knew I existed. Another part is curious about this person whose blood I share." She looked up. "What about you? What do you want from him?" The question caught Maya unprepared. She'd been so focused on protecting Zora, on securing their future against public judgment, that she hadn't examined her own complicated feelings toward Trevor Stone. "Accountability," she finally answered. "Recognition that actions have consequences, even for billionaires." "Just accountability?" Zora pressed. "Nothing else." Maya turned back to the window, watching lights flicker across the bay. In the reflection, she could almost see herself 18 years younger, standing in an Atlanta mansion, negotiating terms with a man who'd inadvertently changed her life trajectory. "Just accountability," she repeated, more to herself than her daughter. "The rest doesn't matter anymore." But as night settled over San Francisco, Maya wondered if either of them believed that was truly possible. The Stone Technologies executive conference room felt cavernous with only 4 people present. Trevor had dismissed the board and attorneys, responding to Maya's single condition for their initial meeting: privacy before publicity. "Thank you for agreeing to this format," Maya said, seated across from Trevor while Zora arranged her presentation materials. "We'll need the board eventually, but establishing parameters first seems prudent." Trevor nodded, struck by the professional demeanor Maya maintained despite circumstances that would unbalance most people. Her tailored suit and crisp delivery camouflaged any turmoil beneath, a skill he recognized from his own corporate armor. "Your proposal?" he prompted. Zora took over, activating the room's display system with practiced ease. "We've developed a 3-phase approach addressing personal, professional, and public dimensions of our situation." The presentation that followed demonstrated why Stone Technologies had identified Zora as their top recruitment target. Each slide presented clear, logical steps addressing probable consequences and contingencies. The proposal was neither punitive nor overly generous, simply practical. First phase: private DNA confirmation filed with appropriate legal documentation. Second phase: controlled disclosure to key stakeholders. Third phase: public acknowledgement through a joint statement emphasizing educational opportunity and family responsibility. The scholarship program would be restructured, Zora explained, with independent governance, ensuring my participation isn't viewed as nepotism. I would decline direct employment with Stone Technologies, accepting instead a position with your foundation. That seems unnecessarily limiting, Trevor interjected. Your technical skills would be valuable to our development team. My skills would be equally valuable helping other students access opportunities, Zora countered. And my position would be uncompromised by accusations of favoritism. The solution prioritized integrity over advantage, a choice Trevor found both frustrating and admirable. Additionally, Maya continued, the settlement initially offered to silence this story will instead fund an educational trust benefiting students facing medical hardships. Named for my mother, not your family. Trevor studied them both, Maya's composed determination, Zora's analytical precision. They had constructed a solution that protected dignity while acknowledging reality. No demands for personal fortune or company ownership. No revenge or public humiliation. Simply a path forward with clear boundaries. You've thought this through carefully, he acknowledged. But there's something missing from your proposal. What? Maya asked, wariness entering her expression. The personal dimension, beyond legal documentation and professional arrangements. What relationship do we actually want with each other? The question hung between them, the emotional core beneath corporate solutions. Zora closed her laptop. That depends on motives, doesn't it? Are you interested in knowing me because of biological connection, professional achievement, or damage control necessity? All three, Trevor answered honestly, and none exclusively. The circumstances forcing this recognition are problematic, but the recognition itself. He paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound manufactured. I would like the opportunity to know my daughter, not to control her future or claim ownership of her accomplishments. Simply to know her. Something shifted in Zora's expression, skepticism tempered by cautious curiosity. And Maya, he continued, what relationship exists between us beyond co-parenting logistics? Maya's professional facade flickered. I don't see how that's relevant to our agreement. Everything about this situation is connected, Trevor countered. Your opinion of me shapes Zora's opportunities to form her own. Your comfort or discomfort influences implementation of every phase in your proposal. My comfort isn't a priority, Maya replied evenly. Zora's future is. Mom, Zora interjected softly. He's right. We can't pretend this is just business. The admission created a moment of suspended tension. Maya pressed her palms flat against the conference table, steadying herself. Fine. You want honesty beyond spreadsheets and press releases? Here it is. She met Trevor's gaze directly. I spent 18 years believing you were exactly what you appear to be that weekend. Privileged, entitled, viewing people like me as functions rather than humans. The scholarship announcement challenged that perception. Meeting you again at the Foundation Gala complicated it further. And now? Trevor asked quietly. Now I don't know what to think. Your response to this crisis has been unexpected. Maya's professional veneer thinned, revealing the weight of 2 decades complicated history. I'm still processing the fact that the man who paid me to lie about intimacy is now sitting across from me, discussing our daughter's future. The raw honesty created space for something more authentic than their careful negotiations had allowed. Let me suggest an addition to your proposal, Trevor said after a moment. A series of small tests. Controlled interactions in neutral settings. Opportunities to establish whatever relationship might be possible without pressure or expectations. Like what? Zora asked. Dinner conversations. Museum visits. Ordinary activities where we can simply talk without crisis management dominating every exchange. The suggestion hung between them, simple yet profound in its normality. What? Maya asked. What purpose would that serve beyond the necessary legal and professional arrangements? Trevor considered his answer carefully, aware that calculated responses had defined their relationship from the beginning. Because regardless of how we reached this point, we're connected now. Not just through Zora or legal documents or public statements. Through shared consequences of choices we've all made. He looked between them. And because I'd like to know the people whose lives have run parallel to mine for 18 years without my knowledge. Zora glanced at her mother, then back to Trevor. I could do dinner. Once. As a trial. Maya's expression remained guarded, but she nodded once. Neutral location. Public but private. No press. No family interference. Agreed, Trevor said, feeling an unexpected sense of accomplishment in this small concession. Shall we test this addition to your proposal before presenting to the board? Yes, Zora answered before Maya could object. Tonight. Better to know if this is even possible before we finalize anything. And so the first small test was arranged, dinner at 7, at a discreet restaurant overlooking the bay. A controlled experiment in whether connection could exist beyond contracts and consequences. Trevor found himself oddly nervous as they concluded the meeting, a sensation he hadn't experienced in business contexts for years. This wasn't a negotiation he could win through superior resources or strategic leverage. This was uncharted territory where success depended on something far more elusive than corporate power, genuine human understanding. The private dining room overlooked San Francisco Bay, city lights reflecting on dark water as evening settled. Trevor had chosen this restaurant carefully, upscale enough for privacy, yet understated enough to avoid ostentation. 3-place settings arranged at comfortable distances, wine for the adults, atmosphere conducive to conversation. Maya arrived first, her business attire exchanged for a simple blue dress that transformed her from negotiator to woman. The shift disoriented Trevor momentarily, a reminder that their connection existed beyond boardrooms and legal documents. The view is beautiful, she commented, accepting a glass of wine. Though I imagine it's routine for you. Familiar, not routine, Trevor corrected. I still find it grounding after difficult days. And today qualifies. Today ranks among the more complex I've experienced. He managed a small smile, though not necessarily negative. Maya's response was interrupted by Zora's arrival. She changed to professional presentation clothes replaced by jeans and a cashmere sweater that suddenly made her look younger, more vulnerable. Sorry I'm late, she offered. Was making notes on the proposal revisions. No shop talk tonight, Trevor suggested as they seated themselves. That was my one condition for this experiment, conversation beyond our situation. That assumes we have anything else to discuss, Maya pointed out. Everyone has stories beyond current circumstances. Trevor signaled the server to begin service. For instance, I know almost nothing about your journey from Detroit to Atlanta, or how you completed an MBA while raising Zora alone. The observation created momentary silence, acknowledgement of 18 years unshared history. Community college night classes while working days, Maya finally answered. Then online courses through a state university program for working parents. Nothing glamorous. Everything worthwhile requires persistence, Trevor replied. My grandfather built stone technologies from a garage operation while working 3 jobs. Your path sounds equally demanding. Something in Maya's expression shifted, surprise at the comparison between her struggles and his family legacy. Mom never missed a single school event, Zora offered unexpectedly, even during finals week when she was getting her degree. She'd study in the car between my science fair and getting to her night job. The pride in her voice was unmistakable. Trevor felt a strange mixture of admiration and regret, appreciation for Maya's dedication alongside awareness of his absence from those moments. What about you? Maya asked, redirecting attention, beyond corporate profiles and magazine features. Who is Trevor Stone when cameras aren't watching? The question caught him unprepared. Who is he truly? Not the performance crafted for boards and investors. Not the careful image cultivated for family approval. Someone who finds equations more straightforward than emotions, he admitted. Who builds systems because they're more reliable than relationships. Who recognized his own eyes in a stranger's face and felt the world shift beneath him. The honesty created space for something beyond politeness. They moved through dinner with cautious questions. Favorite books, Maya. Historical biographies, Zora. Science fiction, Trevor. philosophy, childhood memories, carefully selected to avoid painful comparisons, future aspirations. I want to build adaptive learning systems for kids without access to quality education. Zora explained over dessert. AI that adjusts to different learning styles and cultural contexts. That's remarkably aligned with our foundation's new initiative, Trevor noted. I know. I read the white paper your team published last quarter. Zora hesitated. It's partly why I applied to the scholarship program. The approach matched my thesis project. Another connection neither had recognized shared intellectual interests beyond genetic links. As dinner concluded, an unexpected comfort had developed. Not familiarity exactly, but diminished guardedness. Small bridges forming across 18 years of separation. We should discuss next steps, Maya said as they moved to leave. The board meeting tomorrow. Can wait another hour, Trevor interrupted gently. There's somewhere I'd like to show you both first. If you're willing. Curiosity overcame reservation. They followed him to his car, then through streets climbing toward Twin Peaks. The vehicle stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the entire bay. City lights sprawled below like earthbound constellations. This is where I come to think when decisions feel impossible, Trevor explained as they stood at the railing. Perspective helps, seeing the whole rather than immediate pressures. It's beautiful, Zora acknowledged, camera phone capturing the panorama. From this distance, problems look manageable, Maya observed. Individual lives invisible within the pattern. Trevor turned to her. Is that how you've seen me all these years? A distant force rather than an individual? The directness of his question disrupted the evening's careful diplomacy. Maya's expression shifted through surprise to consideration. Yes, she finally answered. It was easier that way. The billionaire, the corporation, the family name, not a person who might have wanted to know his daughter. And now, he asked, now I'm standing on a hillside with someone more complicated than my assumptions allowed. Her honesty matched his own. It's unsettling. For all of us, Zora added, moving between them. Three strangers connected by biology and circumstance, trying to build something that usually develops over decades. The observation brought their experiment into clear focus, the impossibility and necessity of their task. I have a modification to our proposal, Trevor said after a moment. Beyond the legal frameworks and public statements. What? Maya's caution returned. Time. Regular dinners like tonight. Opportunities to develop whatever relationship might be possible without predetermined expectations. He looked between them. Not as settlement terms or contractual obligations. Simply as people discovering connections neither biology nor circumstances can dictate. Zora considered this, analytical mind visible in her expression. That seems reasonable. Low risk, potential benefit. And you? Trevor asked Maya directly. Are you willing to explore possibilities beyond necessary arrangements? The question carried weight beyond dinner invitations. Maya gazed out at the city below, considering implications. I've spent 18 years protecting Zora from complications I couldn't control, she finally said. Including you. Changing that approach doesn't come easily. I understand, Trevor replied, though disappointment colored his tone. But, Maya continued, protection shouldn't prevent possibility. She turned to face him directly. I'm willing to try. Small steps. No evidentes. Something shifted between them. Not resolution or reconciliation, but openness to discovery. A bridge begun, if not yet completed. As they returned to the car, Trevor found himself experiencing an unfamiliar sensation. Not triumph or strategic advantage, but something simpler and more profound. Hope. The morning headlines delivered their verdict with brutal efficiency. Stone Technologies confirms CEO's secret daughter. Tech billionaire acknowledges teen from housekeeper relationship. Stone heir emerges. How a maid's daughter became scholarship recipient. 3 weeks of careful planning, board meetings, and strategic announcements had culminated in yesterday's press conference. Trevor, Maya, and Zora had presented a united front, acknowledging biological connection while emphasizing educational opportunity and corporate responsibility. The foundation's restructured scholarship program took center stage, with Zora's appointment to its governance board presented as merit-based leadership. Yet media narratives followed predictable patterns, reducing complex reality to sensational simplicity. Maya became the Maid despite her MBA and marketing career. Trevor became either villain or redemption story, depending on political leanings. And Zora, brilliant, accomplished Zora, became primarily secret daughter rather than talented technologist. Trevor's phone hadn't stopped buzzing since dawn. Board members demanding damage assessment. PR team tracking social media responses. Family members ranging from outrage to calculating. Your mother's on line 1, his assistant announced through the intercom. Third call this morning. Trevor sighed, pressing the button. Mother, I had to learn about my granddaughter from the Wall Street Journal. Eleanor Stone's voice carried decades of practiced indignation. 18 years, Trevor. Were you planning to inform your family before or after CNN? The board required confidentiality until public announcement. You know this process. Don't business speak me. I'm your mother, not a shareholder. Her tone sharpened. Your father is absolutely livid. The family name has survived worse scandals, Trevor interrupted. And this isn't a scandal. It's a recognition of responsibility. Responsibility? Eleanor's laugh held no humor. That's the PR phrasing, I assume? Tell me, what exactly happened with this woman? The press coverage implies. Maya Daniels is Zora's mother and a respected marketing executive. Trevor cut in firmly. She raised an exceptional daughter while building her own career. Whatever narratives you're absorbing from tabloids are irrelevant to our current situation. Silence stretched across the connection. When Eleanor spoke again, calculation replaced outrage. The girl favors you. Around the eyes, particularly. Your grandfather's features. The observation, so similar to Trevor's own initial recognition, came with implied acceptance. Eleanor Stone adapted quickly to unchangeable realities. When do we meet her? She continued. Properly, not through press conferences. She's a Stone, regardless of circumstances. Zora Williams, Trevor corrected. She uses her mother's family name, and that won't change without her choice. Don't be naive. Once paternity is public, expectations follow. The foundation appointment is an adequate starting position, but eventually, mother. Trevor's voice hardened. Zora isn't a corporate asset to be positioned. She's a brilliant young woman with her own ambitions. Our relationship develops at her pace, not the family's. The line went quiet again. Trevor could almost visualize his mother recalculating approaches. You care about them, she finally said. Not just the daughter, the mother too. The assessment was uncomfortably perceptive. 3 weeks of dinners, museum visits, and cautious conversations had created something Trevor hadn't anticipated, genuine connection. Maya's practical intelligence complemented his analytical approach. Zora's enthusiasm for technology sparked collaborative discussions that often ran late into evenings. My relationship with Maya is cooperative co-parenting, he replied carefully. Of course. Eleanor's tone suggested she believed otherwise. Well, cooperative or not, they're connected to our family now. Dinner this weekend. Your father and I will receive them properly. The invitation, or command, ended with a click before Trevor could refuse. He sat back, pinching the bridge of his nose against an approaching headache. Family involvement complicated an already delicate situation. Maya and Zora had agreed to professional association and controlled public narrative. They hadn't signed up for the full Stone family experience. His intercom buzzed again. Mr. Stone, MS. Williams is here regarding the foundation documents. Trevor straightened. Send her in. Zora entered, tablet in hand, expression tight with controlled emotion. Have you seen the coverage? She asked without preamble. Unfortunately, they're calling Mom a gold digger, suggesting she planned this for 18 years. Zora's composure cracked slightly. My professors are asking if I'm transferring to Daddy's company now. 3 scholarship students have requested reassignment to different mentors. Trevor gestured to the chair opposite his desk. The news cycle will move on. Your work speaks for itself. Does it? Or will everything I achieve now carry an asterisk? Daughter of privilege? Zora remained standing. I was respected yesterday. Today I'm a nepotism case. The frustration in her voice resonated with Trevor's own experiences. Achievement undermined by assumptions about family advantage. Understand, he said quietly. When I started at MIT, students and professors assumed I'd bought my way in. Every grade, every project carried that suspicion until my work became impossible to dismiss. Except I didn't have that problem until yesterday. Zora finally sat, anger giving way to weary resignation. Yesterday I was just a scholarship student from Atlanta. Today I'm a stone heir with questionable origins. You're still yourself, Trevor countered. Your brilliance didn't develop overnight because of my acknowledgement. Try explaining that at Twitter. Before Trevor could respond, his phone buzzed with Maya's number. He answered immediately. Have you seen the Chronicle piece? Maya's voice carried controlled fury. They found my mother's medical records. Published details about her cancer treatment, connecting it to the convenient timing of my employment at your family's estate. Trevor felt cold anger building. That's completely unacceptable. I'll have legal. It's already published. Maya cut in. The damage is done. My colleagues are treating me like I've been living a double life. My boss suggested taking time until the media attention subsides. The implications were clear. Her professional standing threatened by association with the Stone family drama. I'll call you back, Trevor said, mind already forming response strategies. Don't make any decisions yet. He ended the call, turning to find Zora watching him with assessment that reminded him uncomfortably of his mother. You can't fix this with press releases or legal threats, she said. The narrative is already set. Poor black maid seduces rich white heir, hides child for financial leverage. That's not what happened. Truth doesn't matter now. The story is too perfect. Wealth, race, class, secret child. Every cultural fault line in one convenient package. Zora stood, gathering her tablet. Maybe we should pause this whole experiment. Go back to our separate lives. Trevor rose as well. Is that what you want? Why want my life back? My achievements recognized as my own. My mother respected for raising me single-handedly rather than reduced to the maid in headlines. In our relationship, the connection we've been building, something vulnerable flickered across Zora's expression. I don't know. 3 weeks of dinners doesn't erase 18 years of absence. The assessment stung with its accuracy. Trevor moved around his desk, closing distance between them. You're right that I can't change media narratives overnight, but I can demonstrate through consistent action that my interest in knowing you isn't about publicity or damage control. He held her gaze. If you'll allow that opportunity. Before Zora could respond, Trevor's office door opened without warning. His father strode in, expression thunderous. What the hell were you thinking? William Stone demanded, ignoring Zora completely. The board chairman called me directly. Japanese partners threatening withdrawal. Family foundation donors questioning continued support. Trevor straightened, corporate mask sliding into place. Father, this is hardly the appropriate. I don't care about appropriate. I care about decades of carefully built reputation threatened by your inability to handle personal indiscretions privately. The dismissive phrasing hung in the air. Trevor felt Zora stiffen beside him, her presence suddenly registering with his father. Is this her? William asked, gaze sweeping over Zora with clinical assessment. The girl everyone's talking about? Before Trevor could intervene, Zora stepped forward, hand extended with perfect corporate poise. Zora Williams, she introduced herself, voice steady despite the insult. I believe you're my grandfather. The direct acknowledgement created momentary silence. William Stone stared at the offered hand, then at the young woman's face, where Stone family features gazed back at him with unmistakable clarity. The reckoning Trevor had dreaded had arrived, unplanned and unprepared for, with all its potential for further damage. William Stone did not take Zora's extended hand. Instead, he studied her with the calculating assessment he typically reserved for acquisition targets. measuring value against potential liability. "You have my grandson's eyes," he finally said. "Remarkable resemblance." Trevor moved to stand beside Zora, protective instincts surfacing. "Father, this isn't how I planned to introduce you. Clearly planning isn't your strong suit lately." William's attention remained fixed on Zora. "So you're the marketing executive's daughter, the scholarship recipient." "I am," Zora replied, withdrawing her unshaken hand with dignity. "Though I earned that scholarship before anyone knew my connection to your family." "Did you?" William's tone carried polite skepticism. Interesting coincidence. Trevor felt tension radiating from Zora despite her composed expression. "There's nothing coincidental about Zora's achievements," he said firmly. "Her algorithms impressed our technical team on merit alone." "Of course," William agreed without conviction. "Well, this explains your sudden interest in educational initiatives. Your mother has arranged dinner this weekend to properly introduce." "Mr. Stone," Zora interrupted, "I appreciate the invitation, but I'm not currently accepting new family connections. I already have a family, my mother and the community that supported us for 18 years. The direct refusal visibly startled William, accustomed to deference rather than boundaries. "This situation affects our entire family," he replied, recalibrating his approach. "The Stone name carries certain expectations and responsibilities." "My name is Williams," Zora countered evenly. "I've managed expectations under that name quite successfully." A smile that didn't reach his eyes crossed William's face. "For now, perhaps. But once the dust settles, practical considerations arise. Trust arrangements, succession planning, foundation positioning." "Father," Trevor's voice hardened. "This conversation is premature and inappropriate. Zora and I are establishing our relationship as individuals, not negotiating corporate integration." William's expression shifted from calculation to genuine frustration. "Trevor, stop pretending this is merely personal. The moment you acknowledged paternity publicly, it became a Stone family matter with significant implications." "The only implication that matters currently," Trevor replied, "is that I have a daughter I'm getting to know. Everything else is secondary." Something in his tone must have registered with William, who paused, reassessing the situation. His gaze moved between them, noting their similar stances, the unconscious mirroring in their expressions. "I see," he finally said. "Well, when you're ready to discuss practical arrangements, the family attorneys are available." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Your mother still expects you both for dinner. She's quite determined to meet her granddaughter." After he departed, Zora released a slow breath. "So that's William Stone. Exactly as advertised." "I apologize for his behavior," Trevor offered, moving back to his desk to create space. "Family dynamics are complicated, aren't they all?" Zora's phone buzzed. She checked it, expression tightening. Mom's boss placed her on voluntary leave until the media cycle passes. Apparently, clients are uncomfortable working with someone so high-profile right now. The news hit Trevor with unexpected force. Maya's career, built through night classes and persistent effort, now threatened by association with his family. "This isn't acceptable," he said, reaching for his phone. "I can speak with the firm's partners directly." "No." Zora's response was immediate. "That would only confirm their suspicions about influence and privilege. Mom will handle this herself." The boundary was clear: no Stone family intervention in Maya's professional life. Trevor recognized the independence driving this response, so similar to his own when facing family pressures. "What do you need from me?" he asked instead. The question seemed to surprise her. "What do you mean?" "In this situation, to navigate the current challenges. What support would actually help rather than complicate matters further?" Zora considered this, analytical mind visibly processing options. Space to process. Consistency in our arranged meetings without new expectations. And, she hesitated, reinforcement that my achievements remain my own. Simple requests, reasonable boundaries. Trevor nodded. "And dinner with my parents?" "Not yet." Zora gathered her things, preparing to leave. I need to check on Mom. This is affecting her career directly, while yours remains secure despite being the cause. The observation carried justified criticism. Trevor felt the asymmetry of consequences, his position protected by corporate structure and family influence, while Maya faced immediate professional fallout. "Please tell your mother I'd like to speak with her," he said as Zora reached the door. "About addressing these impacts directly." Zora paused. "She won't accept financial assistance, if that's what you're thinking." "I know. That's not what I'm offering." Something in his tone must have conveyed sincerity. Zora nodded once before departing, leaving Trevor alone with mounting responsibility and diminishing options for resolution. The rooftop garden of Maya's hotel offered privacy and panoramic views of evening fog rolling toward the city. She sat wrapped in a cardigan against the cooling air, expression composed despite the professional crisis she faced. "Thank you for meeting," Trevor said, taking the chair opposite hers. "Zora mentioned your work situation." "Temporary setback," Maya replied with pragmatic acceptance. "Once attention shifts elsewhere, clients will remember my actual qualifications." Trevor studied her. This woman who had raised his daughter with such determined independence, now facing unfair consequences for choices made nearly 2 decades ago. "I've been thinking about our situation," he began carefully. "Not just current challenges, but the underlying imbalance. You carried all responsibility for 18 years. Now your career faces disruption, while mine continues largely protected." Maya's expression remained neutral. "That's how privilege works. I understood the risks when we agreed to public acknowledgement. Understanding doesn't make it right." Trevor leaned forward. "I'd like to propose something beyond our existing arrangements." Wariness entered her expression. "I told you before, I don't need financial." "This isn't about money," he interrupted gently. "It's about opportunity and recognition." Trevor outlined his proposal: a leadership position with the Stone Foundation's new educational technology initiative. Not charity or compensation, but legitimate recognition of her professional qualifications and unique perspective. The role would utilize your marketing expertise while providing platform for your business experience, he explained. Complete operational independence from my direct authority through board governance structure. Maya listened without interruption, analytical mind visibly assessing implications. "Why?" she finally asked. "Beyond addressing current circumstances. Why offer this specifically?" The question demanded honesty beyond strategic considerations. Trevor considered his response carefully. "Because I've come to respect your capabilities through our recent interactions. Because the foundation would genuinely benefit from your perspective and experience. And because," he hesitated, venturing into territory they'd carefully avoided, "I find myself wanting to build something constructive from our complicated history." The admission hung between them. Not quite personal, not purely professional. Maya studied him with the direct gaze that had first caught his attention in an Atlanta mansion. "Our history is complicated for good reason," she finally said. "You were part of a system that viewed people like me as functions rather than equals." Trevor acknowledged. "I've been part of many systems that I now see differently." "Because of Zora?" "Initially, yes, but increasingly because of you as well." The admission felt dangerous yet necessary. "Your perspective challenges assumptions I didn't recognize I held." Maya turned toward the darkening skyline, considering his words alongside his offer. When she looked back, decision had crystallized in her expression. "I'll consider the foundation position under 2 conditions," she stated. "First, formal board approval and public announcement of qualifications-based selection. Second, we maintain appropriate boundaries during this transition period. Zora's adjustment takes priority over any evolving dynamics between us." The careful phrasing acknowledged what neither had directly addressed: the unexpected connection developing beyond co-parenting logistics. "Agreed," Trevor replied, relief mingling with something more complicated. "Shall we discuss implementation details over dinner?" A small smile, the first genuine one he'd seen, crossed Maya's face. "That will be acceptable. Professional dinner, of course." "Of course," Trevor agreed, even as both recognized the increasingly blurred line between their professional and personal interactions. As they walked toward the elevator, Trevor found himself recalibrating expectations once again. This wasn't the family he'd imagined having, nor the professional partnership he'd planned. Instead, something new was forming, complex, challenging, but increasingly valuable precisely because it had been chosen rather than inherited or expected. For the first time in his carefully structured life, Trevor Stone was building connections based not on obligation or advantage, but on genuine recognition of worth. 6 months later, San Francisco's morning fog parted to reveal unusual activity on the Stone Technologies campus. Construction crews completed final touches on the Maya Daniels Educational Technology Center, a glass and steel structure adjoining the main headquarters. Inside the foundation's new home, Zora directed placement of workstations where scholarship recipients would soon develop projects alongside industry mentors. Her confident leadership had silenced early whispers of nepotism. Her technical innovations spoke louder than any rumors about her parentage. The server room still needs additional cooling, she informed the project manager. We'll be running machine learning models that generate significant heat. I'll adjust the specifications, he replied, making notes. Ms. Daniels approved the budget increase yesterday. Zora nodded, unsurprised by her mother's efficient decision-making. In 6 months, Maya had transformed the Stone Foundation from traditional philanthropy into a dynamic incubator for educational innovation. Her marketing expertise attracted corporate partners, while her personal experience with educational barriers informed program design. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, Zora spotted her mother crossing the courtyard with Trevor, heads bent in conversation, reviewing documents as they walked. Their professional collaboration had evolved into a partnership that balanced Maya's practical community focus with Trevor's technological vision. Their personal relationship remained carefully undefined, complex, Maya would say when pressed. Regular dinners and weekend outings had become routine, yet both maintained separate residences and independent lives. Neither rushed toward conventional family structure, prioritizing instead the gradual building of genuine connection. Trevor noticed Zora watching and waved, gesturing toward the entrance. She met them in the lobby, where installation crews hung the center's mission statement in brushed metal letters. Technology should serve humanity, not define it. The board approved your blockchain certification project. Maya informed her, professional pride evident. Full funding for the pilot program. Congratulations, Trevor added. The technical implementation impressed even our skeptics. Zora accepted their praise with growing comfort. The initial awkwardness of their triangular relationship had gradually transformed into something functional, if unconventional. The first Detroit cohort arrives next week, she reminded them. 20 students with backgrounds similar to mine. Similar but different, Maya corrected gently. They'll have resources we didn't. The observation carried no bitterness, simply acknowledgement of progress made. Zora noted how her mother's shoulders no longer tensed when discussing the past. Small healings accumulated gradually. The opening ceremony is confirmed for Thursday, Trevor said. The board will attend. Foundation partners, press. And your parents? Zora asked, the question still carrying weight despite months of cautious interaction. Trevor's expression remained neutral. They confirmed attendance. My mother has shown genuine interest in your work. My father continues adjusting to circumstances. The diplomatic phrasing made Maya smile slightly. William Stone's ongoing struggle to understand relationships built on respect rather than obligation remained a source of occasional tension. I should finish the orientation materials, Zora said, checking her watch. The welcome packets need review before printing. As she turned to leave, Trevor asked, dinner tonight? The usual place? Can't. Study group for finals. Zora's education continued alongside her foundation work. Boundaries she maintained carefully. Tomorrow works, Maya confirmed, consulting her calendar. 7 o'clock? The casual coordination of schedules, so ordinary, yet representing extraordinary adjustment for all involved. Completed, Zora returned to her tasks. Through the windows, she watched her parents continue their circuit of the building, still discussing foundation business. Maya said something that made Trevor laugh, a genuine response rather than professional courtesy. He replied, hand briefly touching her shoulder in a gesture that might have been simply collegial but suggested something more evolving. Zora turned back to her work, giving them privacy even from her distant observation. Whatever developed between them would follow its own timeline, independent of conventional expectations or external pressures. Her phone buzzed with a message from her study partner, a fellow scholarship recipient unimpressed by her complicated parentage but appreciative of her algorithmic innovations. The normal concerns of a young adult alongside extraordinary circumstances. Outside, fog returned to embrace the city, not obscuring the view but softening its edges. Within its gentle boundary, three people continued building connections that none had anticipated but each now valued. Not a conventional family, not a traditional structure, but authentic in its complexity and intentional in its formation. A fragile dawn, perhaps, but genuine light nonetheless.